Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here today. We have a great episode. I'm excited for you to meet our guest, Meg. She's an acne expert, holistic nutritionist, and esthetician. She's helped over 2,500 clients transform their skin, and she knows the struggle personally. She has battled severe acne and was able to find a way to heal from it. In this episode, she shares her personal journey, her 3-pillar approach that combines targeted skincare, internal health strategies, and mindset shifts, plus practical tips. We talk teens and parents. We talk just anyone who's dealing with breakouts, hormonal breakouts as we get older. We talk about so many great things. We talk about how we are kind of bombarded right now in our world with like toxic overload. And the most important thing in her program might surprise you. So I will leave her information in the show notes. If you have any questions for her, pop over to Instagram and hop in her DMs. She likes to chat over there. And I hope you enjoy this one. Make sure to share it with somebody who could benefit from this information. It isn't just for somebody who's breaking out. She does help a lot of people with severe acne, but we talk about so many other topics. This could benefit a lot of women, so make sure to share it with somebody. I always like to know what you think of the episode, so a great way you can do that is by leaving me a review. I read every single one. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Let me know what you want to hear more of. I love your feedback. Thank you so much, and here is Meg. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Learning to Glow. Today we have Meg with us. Welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited that you're here. You are an acne expert. You're a holistic nutritionist, and you're an esthetician. I'm also an esthetician, so this is going to be a lot of fun talking about this topic, which I know a lot of my listeners want to hear about. A lot of my listeners have teenagers as well.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get into sort of what you do and how you treat something like acne, tell us a little bit about you and what you do and how did you come to find this work?
Yeah, so I have had just always a very tumultuous health journey. I've had a lot of traumatic events in my life that spurred on a lot of physical symptoms. One that held on for dear life was always acne. So, really started developing it early in life. And I was put directly on a hormonal birth control pill at 12 without really having any regular period. But at that time, you went to your doctor and that was the solution. No one really batted an eye. And I stayed on it for 10 years until my body just kind of was screaming at me that like, this isn't feeling good anymore. I don't think I've actually lived my own hormonal life for 10 years and very, important years at that too, teens and early 20s, and had no idea. There wasn't Instagram or anything like that out there. And the natural world wasn't even, 1/10 of what it is today. So I just went off cold turkey, no idea what to expect. And it was just a nightmare. My acne, I thought I had bad acne before. It exploded into cystic, painful, my entire face, my entire back, my entire butt, like painful cystic acne. And I just had no idea where to go from there. Went back to the doctor. They were like, well, your only option is Accutane or going back on hormonal birth control. And I was like, wait, no. Like, that's why I got off this. I actually feel so much better off it. It was almost immediate for me. I was like, wow, this is how I'm supposed to feel. Like, this is my true personality. Whoa. But because of that, my hormones were reestablishing after 10 years. And I was so depleted in so many vitamins and minerals that I had a lot of even more health issues develop. So I just became on this quest to try to figure it out naturally. And I did everything I could. I had an esthetician. I did acupuncture. I did herbalist, nutritionist, naturopaths, testing of the yin yang, and none of it worked. I spent upwards of $30,000. I was the most depressed I've ever been in my life. When I say it impacted every single facet of my life, It was like, I wouldn't go out of the house without makeup. I wouldn't even let my friends see me without makeup. It was at the back of my mind for as soon as I woke up, I touched my face, ran to the mirror, had a whole meltdown. If I didn't have a face full of makeup, even if I caught myself in a car window and saw my texture, full breakdown, impacted my confidence, just my dating life, everything. And so after a couple years of pursuing this with other people telling me what to do and it not working, I just had it. And I was like, I'm going to try to figure this out on my own. And I went to the Institute of Holistic Nutrition and I just learned and learned and learned. And once I started to understand what root causes were and how many I had, it was just this like light bulb moment. And I knew after honestly just being in that healing journey for so long that there were kind of three things that I needed. So I needed the skincare piece. You know, you can't just put coconut oil on your face and then be doing all this healing work. It's not going to work. You don't do either or. You got to have it all. And then I knew, again, it had to be from the internal root cause of like what was actually happening. You had to balance the body, listen to the body, understand the body's like on your team, not working against you, which is the relationship I had up until then. And then I understood how much role mindset, what I was saying to myself, played as well. So it was kind of this three-pillared approach that I then basically birthed Get Glow out of. And I've been doing it for 9 years. It was a very organic way of kind of helping other people because I wanted to be the practitioner and have the program that I wanted so badly. So it was this like kind of beautiful full circle moment for me to then be able to help. I've helped 2,500 clients with my programs over 9 years. Absolutely love what I do. And feel that like Acne at the end of the day was my biggest blessing of all because it's given me so many beautiful healing journeys to be a part of.
Oh, wow. What a story. I want to talk more about your story before we talk about some of these other things, but I love that you said you can't just put coconut oil on it. I'm an esthetician who has said this on my podcast so many times. I have my own natural line. And I was like, at the time when I was creating it, coconut oil was all people talked about. And I'm like, no, like that's not, I like being natural, but I don't like that. So that's so funny that you said that. I've said that exact same thing on my podcast. When you were you were so young when they put you on birth control. I also have had negative experience with the birth control pill, and they put me on it because my periods were so heavy. Mm-hmm. What were some of the symptoms that you felt and some of the negative symptoms that you felt? And when you got to that point of you're like, I can't be on this anymore. What was that like? Like, what were you feeling that made you want to get off of it? Because some people just stay on it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people stay on it out of fear of what's going to happen though. And then they're stuck in that cycle, right? Especially people are very scared about the breakout piece, especially, and they have reason to be having gone through that. But if you prep work and do the proper prep work, you can have an easy, safe transition. That's what I'm passionate about now. I never want anyone to go through that because the scarring was what is still left for me, even after all the things, because it was cystic, deep acne, right? I can't just, it wasn't like these like, oh, like very physical symptoms. It was this intuitive knowing that I don't feel this isn't right anymore. And it was the first time I think I've ever led my health journey with intuition that strongly. And I just kept getting these hits of it. And I just was like, you can't do this anymore. Let's just see what happens. And it was the right decision. Obviously it was a mess. And I wish I hadn't had that crazy of a response. But ultimately, it taught me everything that I needed. It was so extreme that it led me to exactly where I needed to go. So, I mean, I don't really believe there are mistakes with health journeys at the end of the day. They all teach you something. But it really was this intuitive pull that it really felt my internal voice was screaming, like, get off, get off, get off.
That's so great that you were able to listen to that voice because we sometimes we just take our doctor's word for it. Well, what do we know? You were so young when you had that pull too. So the fact that you stuck with that and really knew that that was not the path for you is amazing. So when you were approached with the next solution that they gave you, which was Accutane, you said no to that. What was the reason that you said no? Were you just like, I'm just not going back to medicine. I'm going to try to figure this out on my own. And like, what had you heard about Accutane?
It was just the things that I had heard made me very nervous because I had a lot of health specific issues with mental health, anxiety, depression, insomnia, a lot of body pain. I had fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, a lot of autoimmune stuff. And Accutane for a healthy person, those were like the big ones I had heard. And I'm like, I don't think this is a good fit. And it was, again, that start of, again, still listening to my inner voice, being like, this doesn't feel right in my gut. I want to lead with my heart and gut this time. I don't want to go into an appointment where they barely look at me and I'm bawling in their chair, being like, please help me. And they're like, Accutane, or like, get out of my office. Like, it just felt like it's a business. It's not a healing journey where you're like co-creating with a practitioner the way that I do now. Like, I don't think people really do understand the emotional toll that these things play. And like, you're not getting that from a dermatologist. You're in and out like max 10 minutes and you're waiting months for these appointments. And yeah, it's just these side effects. I knew too, first of all, I was really scared of the purge. I was scared of the side effects. And then I even knew back then, well, what happens when I get off it and it leaves my system? Won't it just come back? Like, certainly I'm not fixing anything with this. Like, it's a Band-Aid solution.
Yeah, and it's very harsh on the body, and I know that there are people who feel like there's no other option because when I've talked about acne on this show, it's like this anything really that surfaces on our skin that's kind of like maybe out of the blue or whatever, and it's severe. I always look at that as like a big alarm to what is going on inside. So as you were starting on that journey of discovering, okay, what you're learning about root cause and things like that, what were you discovering about your own health on the inside internally that was leading to what is going on the outside?
The biggest one was cortisol for me. And it's what I see being the same pattern in every acne client that I've ever worked with. I do not think there's a surprise that every person who has chronic acne has had either a very trauma-based story, very long-term chronic stress exposure, very type A personality, perfectionism. Every client I've worked with, that's how they describe themselves. And then we're like surprised that they have chronic acne because they're in chronic fight, flight, freeze. They're chronically inflamed. If we're thinking of acne healing internally as a pyramid, the bottom layer, the base, are your master hormones of cortisol, stress hormone, and insulin, blood sugar. If those are not balanced, your sex hormones are out of whack and nothing else has a fighting chance. So people blame the hormones all the time, but it's not. It's cortisol and blood sugar that are impacting everything else. So chronic stress, not getting out of fight, flight, freeze for years, sometimes at a time for people, that was definitely my root of everything that was just cascading everything else into absolute chaos. And it's the number one thing I see in practice over 9 years. It has never changed. And that is tied very heavily to people's mindset, limiting beliefs, negative self-talk. Basically, what they're telling their body to do is to keep producing more acne because they're constantly stressed and they're in this narrative and identity that like nothing works. I'll always have acne. I'm the one that can't be fixed. And then what happens until we change those limiting beliefs and pull that root out, it's really impossible to see long-term success, which is my goal. I don't want you to keep coming back to me. I want to do my program and give you the tools, especially the mindset tools for lifelong healing.
I love that you're talking about all of that and seeing the similarities with all of your clients with this chronic stress, because that's not really talked about that much. I've heard a lot of people talk about, if you have gut issues, that could absolutely affect, especially when it comes to other skin issues. And I don't know if you deal with other people who have, psoriasis or eczema and things like that. But for the mindset piece and the chronic stress piece and how that affects the hormones and, different things that are going to cause this problem, that's a really important thing to look at. And I think a lot of people, there's adults who have acne and are dealing with this and teens that are dealing with this. And there's a lot of the teens are so stressed. There's so much going on nowadays that just keeps them. It's very competitive now to go to college and with sports and all of the things that they're going through with school. So what else do you see as far as maybe some underlying health conditions with your clients?
Yeah, so a lot of blood sugar issues tied with the cortisol. People are skipping breakfast because their cortisol is too high and then their blood sugar is all over the place. They're not eating enough protein. So the timing of their meals is just all over the place and then their blood sugar is all over the place. I do a lot of work with the gut. I run GI maps, like stool tests a lot. That is something I do wholeheartedly believe in because the symptoms of GI stuff can be the same for everything. So unless you do actually have the data for that, it's really hard to know what's going on. You could have H. pylori, you could have parasites, you could have candida, you could have just like a complete obliteration of good bacteria, which I see often because most women are coming to me after years of antibiotics for their acne. Accutane, hormonal birth control, all these things decimate the good bacteria in the system. So there's a lot of inflammation in the gut. But we know too how much the gut is now related to your nervous system, right? With the vagus nerve. So, again, it's all this, like, it's all connected, right? So that's where I see a lot of liver stagnation, and that's just no surprise based on the current, what we live, the state of our food, just the state of our air, the state of our climate, what we're eating, all the plastics that we're consuming, our beauty products. Like, we are using way more beauty products than we ever used to. A woman, just like, if she's not aware of it, she's showering with all this toxic stuff, and then she's putting all this crazy makeup on, perfume, hair care, and then like leaving the house, right? And that exposure is insane. So I see a lot of that. Those are big pillars, though. You know what I mean? Those
Yeah,
are the
that's
most
huge.
common ones.
Yeah, that's huge. So when somebody comes to you and they've been on medication
Mhm.
and they're like, okay, I want to try a different approach and get to that root cause, like, where do you start? Is it really starting with that mindset piece, or do you start with like testing and like figuring out where their gut is? Where do you start with them?
So I don't believe in any testing other than the GI map from the outset until the foundations are into place. Because what is a test going to tell us it's $500? That you're stressed the F out. Why am I telling you to spend $500 on that? Your vitamins and minerals are out of whack because you're chronically stressed. I don't need you to spend $500 right now. Let's get the foundations in place. So yes, it's always mindset work. It's always getting them out of fight, flight, freeze into feeling safe to heal, starting to believe and trust their body's capable of healing. That's that is the first and most important part, because you could give someone a perfect diet, a perfect skincare routine. They could be on all the supplements tailored to their testing. If they are in fight, flight, freeze, good luck to you. And this is why people are like, nothing's working. I'm going to these naturopaths and spending thousands. And I'm like, yeah, because you're not doing them. You literally have the limiting belief of like, I will always have acne. I am unworthy of healing. I'm unworthy of investing in myself to the right practitioner. That's not going to shift from you doing a test. So we always have to start with that person's specific mindset, what narratives they're telling themselves, uncovering those limiting beliefs for them that they could have picked up. Usually with the subconscious brain, you're picking that up from 0 to 7. So, we got to dig deep into that, get that root out of there, and really give them that support. I think a huge part of what I wanted in my programs that was very much lacking for me is that you were seeing one person kind of for each thing. So, and that's if you had the financial means to do that. So you were seeing someone for mental health, you were seeing a therapist, say, then you were seeing an esthetician, and then you were seeing a naturopath or nutritionist that was doing the internal stuff. No one was talking about your case file. No one knew what was going on with you as a whole. And there wasn't support in between. So when I was feeling like something wasn't working, they're like, well, book an appointment in 4 weeks. And I'm like, but what about now? I'm having a panic attack. So that support validation piece is really, really important for clients. I think before they do a program like this, they just feel like they're just like out to sea, even if they are seeing these practitioners every 4 to 6 weeks for these expensive one-off appointments. So I like to do everything in-house. Like, I'm the only person you're seeing for that full 6 months. And I'm the only person that's going to like talk to you through everything. So I have eyes on every aspect of the healing journey, which I think it can be a big hindrance to healing otherwise.
I think that's what makes you very unique, because I don't really hear people, especially, people that I've come on my show and talked about this topic, talk about the mindset piece as much as you do and how foundational that is for moving forward. And it makes so much sense. So I love that that is really a key pillar for your program, because that's very unique. And I think that's probably why you see so many success stories.
100%.
But when you did mention diet, so I feel like that is something that you need to address when you're dealing with this type of thing as well. I've had issues with my kids and their skin, and it wasn't acne, but it was eczema. And it was really related to nutrition and diet and allergies and things like that. And we were able to clear that up once we figured it out. What are your thoughts with this, with nutrition, diet, when it comes to acne?
So if there is an intolerance or an allergy, 100% you need to remove that food. If there is not, telling someone with acne who's already hella stressed out that they cannot have anything because they have acne, It just leads to food fear and more cortisol and more stress. And it's never really about the bite of cheese they're having. It's about their extreme food fear and anxiety that I'm going to eat this piece of cheese and I'm going to have a breakout with it. So I'm very passionate about non-restriction, sustainable, realistic plans when it comes to food because I love food. And when I was told that I had to go on all these crazy diets, I was miserable and they never worked for me because I didn't have a tolerance or an allergy. If someone stops dairy and all their symptoms go away, oh my gosh, keep dairy out. Listen to your body. It is telling you something. But it's not a lot of my clients. It wasn't myself. So again, if you're able to tolerate all these foods and you don't have an underlying condition that makes that, hard on your system, it's the food fear that we need to eradicate. It's the demonizing of these foods that we need to eradicate and give you that freedom to have joy in your life. Because we need to remember how much revolves around food. Every celebration, let's go out for dinner, let's have a family dinner, let's make this, let's do that, let's go for ice cream, let's do that. Let's go on vacation. Like my clients are so scared of food. The stories that I've heard have just been like truly heartbreaking. They just haven't been participating in their lives. And that to me is that's so much more of a detriment to their health than them learning that like you can do a 70-30 approach to diet. I'm not saying to eat sugar, dairy, processed foods every day. 70% whole foods, 100%. Do I see the value in food? Of course, I'm a nutritionist. But I also think we've tipped the scales way too far the other way. And that is a generalized approach that's very antiquated in my books. And again, if you're doing the mindset work, you've got the stress under control, you can have freedom in almost everything, especially food.
Oh, I love that perspective. It's so funny that you mentioned that too. I remember when I was a teenager, there were articles everywhere about fast food. French fries make you have acne. And
Yeah.
I mean, I've been very lucky in my life. I've never had acne. I'm extremely dry, but I would eat French fries and it never broke me out. So it's funny how you read these, it is like an article in Glamour or whatever magazine. And it's like, this causes this, and this is why you have acne, when that's been debunked. But I think when you've been hearing things in your subconscious for so many years, you think, okay,
Oh, it's
that
conditioning.
it is total conditioning. And it's like hard to realize the truth of it. And I think that it is true if you already have somebody who's so chronically stressed and upset and dealing with all of this, this is a very difficult thing to go through. It's very difficult. And so to add on, okay, no, I can't, enjoy this or that I can imagine would be extremely stressful, just making things so much worse. So one of the other things that you mentioned, and because you are an esthetician, you did mention skincare. So we can't talk about acne without talking about this part of it, this piece of it. So tell us what your thoughts are. And you said earlier, we've been using more products than we've ever had to use before. We live in a society where things are pushed so much more. I mean, it's ridiculous in my opinion, but people think, okay, that's what I need. And so there's a lot of misinformation there, but tell us your thoughts on skincare.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think we have to remember the beauty industry is like billions and billions and billions of dollars, and everything that we're getting pushed now is so tied to influencer marketing. It's like half the people aren't even using what they're showing you. Just by the
Mm-hmm.
way, I've worked with influencers. Like I know this to be a fact, so just be careful. And there's filters on their faces half the time.
Yep.
Yeah, so I believe heavily in basically skincare for acne type and skin type, right? So what that's going to look like, as is everything for me, is an individualized approach, right? Not everyone's going to be able to tolerate the same actives or the same routine or the same frequency of exfoliation, but I do believe in rotation of products based on their skin type and acne type. So I know that there's just like, it's as everything in this world is, there's extreme, it's like 100% natural or like 100% tretinoin and epiduo and all this stuff. And it's like, I'm in the middle. I love actives. I love acids. I use benzoyl peroxide. I like retinol, but I use it in a really gentle way. I'm not burning people's skin off. And I still really believe in the power of having a healthy skin barrier, but you can have both if you know what you're doing, and you can perfect it on the client based on their individual needs.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I also remember being, before I got into aesthetics, the thought process behind acne was strip. You want to
Mhm.
strip the skin, toners with alcohol, heavy fragrance, and then you would get, you'd see the skin and it was just completely dehydrated and a mess. Having more of a balanced approach to that is so important, I think, because that's another thing that people hear and think that they need to do. I know you work with clients who are more on the severe side and really need to work on a deeper level in all the areas that you've mentioned, but what about people who are maybe going through perimenopause or menopause and they're like, oh my God, I'm breaking out at 40. Like, I never broke
Mhm.
out in my entire life. I don't know if you've worked with people like that, but what do you do for somebody who's like, this isn't taking over my life, but I'm like, what the heck is going on? What should I do here for my skin?
It is the same approach where their body's just going through a shift. So if you support that from an internal perspective, and then you obviously amp up their skincare, because most of them are like, I have no idea, I've never had acne. How do I kind of deal with this? But also, you have
Mhm.
to have the anti-age. Like my clients too are almost always in their late 20s, 30s. Like that's where my like biggest kind of age group is. So they're also wanting anti-aging approaches too, right? So just kind of taking that into consideration. But yeah, it's always going to be internal, external mindset, no matter what the case is. Even if they've just never experienced acne before, that's still going to apply to every single person, because you just need all three in order to have long-term success. Of course, you can see Band-Aid solutions working for people, for these little spurts of time. But I'm talking, I want to give you the tools again to like not come back and see me unless you've had like a baby and you're postpartum, and you know what I mean. That kind of thing is a little bit of a different ball game, because we just don't have much control over that one. But otherwise, I that's the goal, is to give you the tools yourself.
Yeah, and I think maybe looking at like what's going on in their life too, because a lot of times it's like, oh, my child is moving out of the house and I'm an empty nester, and that creates an extreme amount of pain for
Stress,
me. Yeah, and stress, and or they're going through a divorce or whatever. So it's like
totally.
sometimes it's not out of the blue that, but
No.
they're thinking, oh, this has never happened to me. But well, you've never had this situation as well. So do you have any tips for any moms who might be listening for their teens? Maybe they don't have, I don't know. I've have friends who've had kids with kind of severe acne at a young age, and then all of it in between, all different levels. Do you have any advice for those moms? They don't know what to do. They didn't have to deal with it. Their kids are dealing with it. They never had to deal with it. So what's some advice for them?
Yeah, teens are tough, obviously, because you never want to take things away from them and make them feel that they can't like be living a teenage joyful life, right? So, that is an area where I feel especially protective of the diet culture that comes into play and the restriction. Like I've worked with teens that have come from traditional naturopaths, and they're like, well, we can't do this diet anymore. Like her friends want to go for pizza, and like she's like having the worst time. I'm like, she should be going for pizza with her friends. That's like the most important part of her life right now, is her social life. So for teens, it should be just really a gentle approach, but still the same three pillars at the end of the day. Their bodies are telling us something. What is it? We do as much as we can with just like really simplistic add-ons, right? So a little bit of like, what can we add in a little bit more fruit and veg? We don't have to take anything away. Um, can we add in a little, like, can we add in a smoothie for breakfast that tastes good without taking it away? Gentle skincare that's non-pore clogging. What is their makeup? Especially for girls, are going to Sephora and like they're wearing all this makeup that probably has 10 pore cloggers in it. So like sometimes it can be as simple as just like fine tuning things. That doesn't have to be this big to do. Maybe adding like one or two supplements that are like very gentle that they can like take and it's not a big deal. Um, I do feel if they're willing to do the mindset work, it will change their lives and set them up to have like the most beautiful experience, especially being a teen and into their early 20s. I have a daughter. That is something I will start with her, even just affirmations, as soon as she can start to understand that. Like, I am beautiful, I'm worthy, I'm enough. I don't think we understand how much of an impact that has. It really scares me. The comparison trap, the just like pure sheer amount of BS that they're consuming on a daily basis about beauty standards and filters and what skin's supposed to look like. Like, I don't remember being as hard on myself back when I was growing up, because we just weren't exposed to it. We had MySpace, and like, that was it, right? You were on a webcam, a grainy webcam. There weren't like filters that you were like needing to have this glass perfect skin. So, as much as you can limit the screen time and what they're exposed to online, like we don't have to go and have these Sephora parties. Like, it's insane. I just feel like it's just setting them up for just failure. You know what I mean? And yeah, just I think validating it. It's a really, I went through it. Like it's a terrible journey to go through at that age. And that was before social media and before I think bullying has gotten really out of control too. So empowering, especially young women, empowering themselves to like have that confidence throughout that journey and then like supporting their healing in those like small kind of bite-sized pieces.
Yeah, it's so true. What they're dealing with is so much worse than what we had to deal with and growing up. There was nothing like that when I was growing up. So, and it was still heavy diet culture. You still
Yeah. Oh
got all
yeah.
that stuff,
The
but
magazines were tough. Yeah,
the
for sure.
magazines and just like the things that you heard and the things that you saw on TV, but it's so much harder now. And especially with the little girls I've seen, I don't have girls, I have boys, but wanting to have massive Sephora hauls and all of that. And what are they doing at the end of the night? Like, are they washing their face? Those are things that I think a lot of parents, I mean, a lot of my clients are women in their 30s and 40s and beyond, and they are even struggling to wash their face. So it's like,
Mm,
you have to, I think, get some of these habits down yourself too as a mom, and then be able to
yeah.
teach your kids, because, it's not something that you grow up knowing. And if you're putting a bunch of stuff on your face and then not removing it at the end of the day, in the age that which it's starting is really young. Like
I
these kids
know.
are going into Sephora, like you said, really young. I mean, are there any things that parents could look out for when they're treating their kids that is like, maybe you should skip that as far as ingredients or makeup or anything like that? I know you did talk a little bit about the toxins and some of the stuff that could build up with our home care, our self-care, all of that.
Yeah, so there's a pore cloggers list. Like I think I have one in my free resource. But you can also Google it. Like a ton of acne websites have it. I know ClearStem has one, and I think like the New York Acne Clinic. You literally just it's like pore clogging ingredients list, and you can literally input your product into it, and it'll be like boom, 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 boom. You have 10 pore cloggers in this. So makeup, hair care, all of that should be immediately checked. That can be for a teen in and of itself all that's causing it for a lot of them. So
Sure.
that would be the number one thing. Just make sure that there's no pore cloggers, and then yeah, and then kind of go from there and just make sure you find stuff that's really gentle and supportive that doesn't have pore cloggers, including makeup, especially for the girls that are like kind of piling all of that on.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay, this is awesome. So if somebody is dealing with some issues and they want to get a hold of it, tell us how they can learn more about what you do in your program.
Yeah, I love hearing from people in my DMs. So I'm just at Get Glow Method. My website's getglowmethod.com. But yeah, just like message me. I love talking to people and just kind of seeing how best I can help them. It's just the best way. I mean, I feel like I used to really love Instagram at the beginning. It was much more community based, and it's just not that anymore. And I'm on it to like connect with people. So I love hearing directly from people so we can actually have a one-to-one conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Reach out to Meg if you're having questions and you want to learn more about what she does. I think, what you said a little bit earlier with the teenagers and kind of working on this mindset stuff too is really a gift as they,
Oh,
navigate life. Like if we had these tools
I
back in
can't
the
even
day,
imagine. Yeah,
right? Like, I
I
mean,
can't
it's
even
huge.
imagine.
It's amazing. And we know so much more now, and there's so many more ways to deal with that and just set them up in a positive way. So thank you so much for being here today
Of
with
course.
us.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.